Welcome so much to the Hero's Journey podcast. I'm excited to do our interview today to find out what your story is and how it has helped you to find that inner achievement inside of yourself. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much for having me on the interview today. It is a pleasure to be with you. So, what is your backstory? What was it like for you growing up? And what were the fundamental beliefs that you gained as you were growing up? My backstory is that I grew up the last of six kids. I was teased in elementary school a lot and teased at home. I felt sorry for myself a lot and I isolated myself to be alone because I felt rejected by everyone else. So in childhood, I think my particular childhood and others that I've noticed carry these childhood wounds are created from some specific core memories that, when played over and over again, these become the paradigms that we think about and that we identify as who we are, that create the emotions around how we make the choices in life and how we see the world as we think it is, right? Stephen Covey says we don't see the world as it is, but as we are. And I think it's because of these core childhood memories that cause these deep wounds that we carry around with us. The three core limiting beliefs that I've recognized as of recently is number one, self-doubt. Number two, an inferiority complex. And number three, feeling manipulated or controlled by others. And those are tendencies that get created in my world now. As I make decisions and navigate through life, those are tendencies, the default wiring, I call it, that I have to constantly fight against as part of my experience in life and continually work to recognize deeper and deeper layers around how those beliefs are causing me limitations in my current experience of being able to live freely, of being able to experience everything that I truly desire to experience in life. So there was a few significant things that happened to me in my childhood that I carried around for a long time. One was when I was 5, and this is nothing against my family. Again, just recognize the interpretation of the way that I reacted to the world because of the belief that I had in my own mind that I was worthless. Okay, so when I was 5, there was an experience with a parent. I was sent to my room to be punished because of something I did. And while sitting in that room, I felt alone, I felt abandoned, and I had deep emotional wounds that were created because of the choices that I made subconsciously in that experience. One of them was that nobody loves me. I'm not wanted. Nobody wants me to be here. One of them was that I'm worthless. I'm made of junk. I'm not valuable to anybody. And by sitting there in that room by myself for several hours, it felt like, as a 5-year-old, I made these decisions about who I am. And that created the color that I see the world with. The second thing that happened that I remember that I held on to for a really long time until I let go of it recently through hypnotherapy was a memory of sitting in a car waiting with my siblings for my mom. She was inside talking to someone or something like that. And we were waiting in the car. And there was song playing on the radio and I started singing the song. And one of my siblings said, "Who sings this song?" You know, of course, they were always teasing. And I'm like, "Mariah Carey." I think it was Mariah Carey or whatever. And I loved to sing. It was just one of the things that brought me joy. And the sibling said, "Well, let them sing it." And I interpreted that again as something that I saw the world through that color of lens. That meant to me, my interpretation of that experience was that nobody wants to listen to me. Nobody wants to hear me sing. I sound ugly when I sing, or I'm not a good singer. All of those emotions wrapped around that experience became one of my core memories. So those are the three of the core memories that I held on to for a long time until recently through working through hypnotherapy. I've been able to overcome a lot of it. But again, it comes in layers, right? Your self-development is something that you keep recognizing a little bit more at a time as you're ready to experience different things in life. That's my backstory. Awesome. Yes, thank you so much for sharing. And the second question, as we go into your story, is to recognize what your longing is. What were the desires that you had inside of yourself? As you were growing up and you had those experiences, was there something that you were able to recognize inside of you? Both an outer goal, but also an internal goal, a desire that you might have felt was calling you to something bigger. This is what we call the call of greatness. What was inside of that desire for you? So, when I was 12 years old, I remember going to my first personal development event, and we called it a fireside. And at that event, I remember sitting down in the stage, looking up at the guy, some guy, I don't remember his name. He was singing and he was telling stories. And I felt this longing in my heart, this desire. And I imagined in my mind me being up there on stage, like, you can do that. That's something that you can do. Like this little whispering in my heart that made me feel like that might be something I would enjoy and desire and aspire to. Of course, I never talked about it growing up. I didn't dare tell anybody, of course, from the course, like, think about it, from the core memories that I had as a child, that I felt inferior, that I felt like my voice, nobody wanted to listen to me. I sounded awful. I'm ugly. I'm worthless. All of those core, right? I'm thinking of that's who I am. So I'm looking up, literally looking up at this experience and imagining the possibility that I could do that with all of this negative emotion inside of me. And it absolutely felt impossible. There was no way that I saw that I could go from where I was to that big, huge dream. And then over the years, of course, there's been more and more of those experiences, imagining what I might be able to do. As I've been in the self-development world, I've listened to lots and lots of different life coaches and classes and all the things, right? And as I've listened to certain people, I've continually recognized what I like about some people and what I don't like as much about other people, and where that resonates with me and who I am and what that means for me and my voice. And it's been a huge journey of continually facing my fears, of overcoming this negative emotion that's been stuck inside of me. And gratefully, tenacity is one of the gifts that I have developed. And that has helped me to continually face those fears and go just one step more. What is the desire or result of what you want to achieve? So, the external desire around all of this is the desire to be an entrepreneur, the desire of feeling that I want to create something that makes an impact in the world. I remember listening to Stephen Covey, one of my heroes, while I was in college, and he's talking about multi-generational legacy, about the ripple effect that a person can create in their life. And I remember having the audacity to dream 500 years into the future, that what could happen? What if? Maybe, just having that tiny little seed of hope and looking into the future of what I might be able to do to live my purpose and to live with greatness and to do that thing that I was born to do. So that external desire has been, for as long as I can remember, to create a business of my own, to be an entrepreneur, to create an impact and give a legacy based on who I am and the gifts that I have and what I can contribute to the world. The internal desire. That's a very interesting question. What is the internal desire that I've had in all of this? The internal desire. That's a very interesting question. What is the internal desire that I've had in all of this? I think most of all that there is a darkness that pushes against us in what our gifts are. Because I've had such a struggle with using my voice, I believe that it is a desire and a gift that I have developed in opposition to that struggle. And it's important to recognize what your gifts are as you're going along your journey, and how there might be a darkness that's pushing against you to try to stop you from using that gift. So my internal desire has been and is to be able to use my voice to share my story, to help other people to know that they're not alone, that they don't face these fears by themselves, that there's someone else out there that has overcome. Granted, I know I'm still in the middle of my journey, right? We're all still on a journey. I am still overcoming. And I want to be an inspiration to other people that want to live their purpose, to want to move forward in their own journey. I want to use my voice. I want to use my voice to help people to know that their voice matters, because that's been one of the deepest pains that I have felt in my own life. So as you are moving forward in your journey, you probably recognized a hole or a need in the world based on the problems that you saw. I really do love this part of the journey because the problems that we notice in our world, I think, are unique to our perspective. And it gives us a glimpse into what our gifts and talents are that can be able to answer that call. What was the problem and the need that you were noticing? One of the stories that happened about why I want to use my voice. I was in an abusive situation. I was hearing someone else being physically abused, and I didn't say anything. I didn't call the police. I didn't do anything. Abuse isn't just a one-time experience. There's been many narcissistic people in my life that I have attracted and I have allowed to use me. In all of that experience, I've recognized that someone that is being abused is someone that does not use their voice. They don't speak up and stand up for themselves. All those bullies that I had in elementary school, I never stood up to them until I had hypnotherapy and in my imagination worked through that experience standing up to my bullies. They don't use their voice, and I didn't use my voice in the past in abusive situations to speak for what I need, what I truly need, and what my boundaries are and what matters to me and what I want. So many years of unhealthy marriages because I was the one that didn't speak up. I'm not saying that it was totally my fault, but I recognize that there are things in my experience that I created based on not using my voice. And that is a horrible, huge problem that I see in the world, that other people that are allowing themselves to be abused are not using their voice. Or how did you see the potential that this could meet the need that would fill the hole of the problem that you saw in the world? My internal desire then is that I am an example of using my voice, of facing my fears, and of also inspiring other people to use their voice and to face their fears as well. So that's truly my ultimate internal desire. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love seeing inside of your journey and looking into the heart of what truly is that core desire. It's awesome because it drives us. It drives us forward. That's our key motivating factor. As we now look into the ways that you have tried to achieve that goal, there are probably some things that didn't work for you. As you are working toward that goal and as you look back upon your path, where do you see that things didn't work out for you? What old vehicles did you try that you weren't able to get the result that you wanted? When it comes to personal transformation, it has been my core desire to grow and to overcome all of these negative, heavy emotions inside of me. I've tried lots of different things to work through what's been stopping me. And a lot of things have really created progress. I started when I hit my rock bottom back when my kids were young. I remember literally feeling like I was totally out of control, and I was. I was trying to control my kids because I couldn't control myself. I remember crashing to the floor one day, pounding my fists on the floor and saying, "Why won't you listen to me?" Well, I know now. I know that my kids wouldn't listen to me because I didn't have control inside myself. I was trying to use my voice to force, and all of those lessons that I've learned since then. So the journey has been a matter of changing those paradigms, truly learning what agency is, what force looks like, and how to use my voice in really a powerful effect to invite people and not to force them. There's so many amazing books that I've learned to try to figure out my thinking. And I could go through a list of classes and a list of books and all the education. My desire to learn has been one of those things that's propelled me forward. And as I wrote my book, I guess it's been about 14 years now, I recognize the pattern that I have used over time to be able to work through these pieces of my personal development journey over the years, one step at a time. And those three, I know it sounds so basic and so simple, but no matter where you are on your journey, you can start right now and take one step. Those three things that I've continually done that led me upward in a spiral is to learn, apply, and share. And I don't know if that applies to everyone, but it makes sense to me that it would. It makes sense that on your learning journey, universal to the whole human race, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, I've looked for those pattern and principles that are the foundation to all of us. And learning is something that all of us need in order to figure out what those default wiring paradigms are and how to change them into what we want to think. Not the default, but the swimming upriver of what we want to think and how that's going to help us create the life that we want. So what have I tried in the past? Oh my goodness, learning all the books, all the classes. I detail it a little bit more in my book about some of the specific classes and things that I learned. There was life coaches. Some of them I followed for years and years, learning how the brain works and how to process my emotions. Lots of progress in those experiences with life coaches. Of course, along your journey, I have noticed along my journey that there has been a weaving of, and that's one of the most beautiful things that I've noticed about my learning experience, is that I feel this internal desire, this pull toward what's the next thing I need to learn. And then I get guided and someone new comes into my life, and that becomes the new experience of what I need to learn at the time. So it's been a journey. And I think that's the way it is for all of us, is that we learn something that's going to help us to propel toward where we want to go, toward what we want to create. And sometimes it's painful, honestly. Sometimes it's pain that we're running away from, and sometimes it's desire that we're running toward. Other things that I've tried, life coaching. I've had lots of different mentors over the years. One specifically, I found in a homeschool group, one mentor I've had for 15 years. And we've been working together. She helped me write and edit my book. And she's been working with me sometimes weekly in the beginning, and now monthly. We still talk. And her insights and perspective is so hugely valuable to me being able to see my life. And honestly, I feel like it's a God conversation. It's one of those ways that I'm able to connect with her, and she's connecting with our common source, our who we believe in, God. And as I say that, I stumble on my words because I don't want to put my beliefs on anyone else. And I do believe that we all have a way that we see our belief system in a way that's right for us. And if you come to the 5-day challenge, at some point you can hear about the parable of the peas and how that panoramic perspective really does apply to the God conversation. So who I believe in is God, Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ. And I'm not ashamed of that, but I don't want to push that on anyone else. And I'm totally open to allowing other people to believe what they believe. So just wanted to clarify that. Other things that I've tried, especially after my third divorce, was traditional therapy. There's some cases where I tried traditional therapy before. If you're not familiar, you go to see a therapist, you talk about the problems of the past, they give their perspective on how you can work through them. I had a great experience with an awesome therapist during that third divorce period. I hadn't had very many good therapists before then, tried them here and there. Their third divorce, I was able to find a therapist that helped me to truly recognize the deep internal wounds that I was holding on to. It really did expose a lot of that stuff that I really didn't know was there. even through all of the learning and all of the things that I had done before, I didn't recognize the deep wounds that I was holding on to. Some of the experiences were through EMDR, and he said I was really good at being able to recognize what I was feeling in my body, what it looked like, what it felt like. And I think that's partially due to my gift of introspection. Being able to have that experience and open that up exposed a lot of the junk, so to speak, that I was carrying around that literally did cause 3 divorces. One thing I want to mention about EMDR specifically is I was able to have a good experience with it because of my intuitive gift of being able to recognize what I was going through and my previous understanding of how to use emotional tools to process. But I have heard several stories from other people. One was a doctor that I was working with in the beginning of my hypnotherapy schooling, and we worked together. And she had experienced EMDR in a way that opened her up and exposed a lot of the raw emotions that she had that did not, again, close them. And then I was talking to someone else recently in exploring our unique processes and finding out the story of how she has discovered her processes, and she had the same experience with EMDR. There's at least 3 instances that I have heard of directly from people that have used EMDR in a way that opens up and exposes. And honestly, it's dangerous. And I'm not saying that people that do EMDR and never should do it, but it's a cautionary tale because it doesn't use a full emotional circle. And what I mean by that is the 4 R's process that I have adopted and adapted to our specific methods. That creates a full emotional circle. And it's so important, especially when dealing with the inner child, is that we are so compassionate and tender with those childhood wounds. There was one experience that I had that didn't work, that I went to a life coach course, and she was teaching for 2 or 3 days, and there was an emotional processing experience. One thing that surprised me with this life coach is she felt herself quite experienced, and she in fact was charging $62,000 for her highest package. And during the processing, I was one of 5 people in a group. I stood up, I exposed my inner child, I exposed my fears, I exposed my pain. And during that conversation, just to give you a quick glance, the 4 R's that I use are to recognize, remove, replace, and reimagine. So the reimagining part is planting a seed of what you want into your future imagination and imagining that happen. That's something that I've particularly adapted because of my experience of mental practice and in my dance training, and knowing how powerful that is in creating emotions in the mind and in the body. Just recognizing what that 4th one is, when you plant that seed into the future of the thing that you're creating. What this life coach did in that experience, she planted a seed into the future of the opposite of what I wanted. And I felt like she slapped my inner child right in the face. And I'm not saying I hate her. I'm not saying she's a horrible person, but I'm saying that people, influencers and creators and life coaches that are out there that don't understand what these 4 R's are, they don't understand how to create a safe emotional processing experience that closes it back up, that truly removes the pain, and then plants into the future what you do want and how to create that. It's dangerous. I'm just saying to be careful with who you hire, because you are the one that gets to choose your path. Don't give away your agency to anybody else. And don't give that power to anybody else to decide for you what you know best for your life. Those answers are inside of you. What you need is inside of you. Now, as we look into the journey, we go into phase 2 of the hero's journey, and we look at what you experienced as you're coming out of your regular world, as they call it, the ordinary world, into your new adventure. And in the hero's journey pattern, they call this the call. So as you look back upon your journey and you had that desire within yourself, what was the experience like for you as you remember thinking back to what that call was And what was the reason? What was the motivating factor that you decided, yes, I have to move forward in this journey and start right now? So after I went through a lot of the emotional experiences as a young mom, realizing I had no power and really wanting to gain that power in myself, starting on the educational journey of getting my mindset right, getting the paradigms in my head that I needed to believe, I felt this call toward growing a garden. And that's when I wrote about the stories in my book and all of those lessons that I learned that truly transformed my paradigms, understanding what the law of the harvest was and how it applied to the way that I lived my life and made my choices. Those are the foundational principles that I learned. And why did I start the call of actually using my voice? There was an experience that I had of learning about who Joan of Arc is. And I just felt this draw to learn like all about her that I could. And of course, she's born in the 1400s and there's not much out there. So I read everything that I could, not adult version, but I went to the library in the kids section and I learned everything that was on a simple level. While I was on that journey of learning about who Joan of Arc is, I felt as if she was with me as I was reading about her story. And I know that sounds kind of like maybe I'm a little bit out in the woods and I've lost it. But if you have had any experiences of learning about someone that is in your family, your ancestors, you kind of can feel a kinship to them. I'm not saying that this was real. I could have imagined it, but it was real to me in my heart. And what I experienced as I learned about her, it felt like she became my sister. And I felt as if she was telling me additional things that weren't actually written on the page about who she was and about why she followed God and about why she had the power and the tenacity to face what was impossible for her in her life. So I felt a lot of similarities to her story because the things that I felt that I faced that were impossible. And there was one specific experience of, I think it was like a meditation or something, but I was reading about her story in one of the battles, and it was as if I was sitting there with her in the battle. And she was wounded. It was in the Battle of Terrell's, I think how you say it. And she got hit in the shoulder. And the arrow, it was as if I was trying to discover for myself, how am I going to move forward to take all this heaviness, all this darkness that's stopping me? How am I going to move forward with this? So what I imagine in that memory is that she pulled out the arrow from her shoulder, and then she crawled over to the wall and she stabbed the arrow into the wall. And then she used it to help herself climb further up on the wall. And what that was saying to me was that I can take these negative emotions and I can pull them out of me to actually use them to help me to create what I do want, to help me to move forward. And yes, at times it's through grit and power and tenacity that happens. But there is huge power in taking the lies that are inside of you and finding out what is the truth behind that truly is what the lie is trying to keep you from knowing. So that's why I decided to have courage and to start taking those steps forward to live my purpose. And it was really messy and scary at first. You can go back in YouTube and you can look at all of my old videos under Pennie Rumsey. And there's some scary videos of me way back in the beginning. And that's why I began the journey, was because of that desire that I felt to live my purpose. Thank you so much for sharing that and being vulnerable. I appreciate so much your honesty and really being able to help the people on our podcast to be able to look inside themselves and to see where they might also experience what you're going through and have been through as you're achieving this hero's journey of your own. So there's often things that we face that stop us from being able to move forward. The hero's journey pattern calls it villains or the enemies of our journey. As you look back on your journey, what do you recognize was keeping you from having success? And these could be things in your external world or things in your internal world. Who is the villain that was stopping me from having success? Well, I do have a piece of this in my webinar and the 5-day challenge that talks about the villains and the darkness that we face. I think first thing is that we have an internal battle. I think there's that internal struggle of fighting yourself and finding out what is out of alignment inside of you. So that first battle is those things that I believed about myself because of those core memories from childhood, the things that caused me that heaviness and the lack of belief in being able to move forward. And they honestly show on my face in those old movies. You can see the discomfort and all of the ways that those emotions were showing up as I was trying to move forward. The second enemy that I think we face is literally gravity. It's the resistance that we have through life. And in my book, I talk about this as the river of opposition. It can be referred to as the law of entropy, the scientific law where everything decreases in organization until it becomes at rest. So all of us face this opposition in life. Just imagine a tree that's growing vertically up to the sky is using the gravity that is pulling it down because it knows where the ground is. The seed grows toward the center of the earth, the roots, and it's because of the gravity that it knows where to grow up. I think that principle applies to all of us in our lives when we face opposition, that if we have the right perspective to recognize that that gravity is what's helping us to grow up, just the same principle as the muscles in the body, and the resistance is the reason why we get stronger. As we increase our resistance, we increase our muscle ability to be stronger and to lift more weights. That same principle is true in life. We need that resistance. We need the gravity to help us to move forward. And the third thing, literally, I mentioned before is the darkness. And I refer to that as Satan because I believe God. I believe there is an opposite, and that is who I call Satan or Lucifer. And I believe, and I refer to him metaphorically as the darkness, but because I think it's more universal to many people, I believe that opposition is more than just gravity. That part of what stops us is those doubts, the distractions, the delay, all of the battle that we face in our minds of how to move forward. I believe a good amount of that comes from the adversary, that darkness that doesn't want us to live our purpose, that doesn't want us to know who we really are, and doesn't want us to move forward in doing good to help anyone else. He wants us to stay small. He wants us to stay alone and isolated. There was a family reunion that we had once where at the end of the night, my brother-in-law were trying to figure out what to do with the fire, and we're like, okay, what should we do? Put water on it, whatever. And he's like, just separate the coals and they'll die. Well, I realized at that moment that that is true with us as people. Satan wants us to be separated. He wants us to be alone. And when you separate us, we die, which is, I think, one of the huge pandemics about digital electronics and how it's separating us and keeping us alone. So those are the three things that I see as the enemies that I fight. And as you were starting out that step to make the first actions to begin your journey, what would happen for you if you didn't have success on your journey? This is a really good thing to recognize for you in your journey as well, because like I mentioned before, there's things that we're running away from, the pain, all of the hurt. What are we running away from? And also, what are we running toward? So what I am running away from, and that fear of what will happen to me if I don't succeed in my goal to be an entrepreneur or in my goal to live my purpose, to use my voice. It takes me back to a class that I had on oratory, and the teacher was guiding me through some journal writing experiences. And one of them he had me write about was, what does your life look like if you don't live your mission or your purpose? And then, of course, after that exercise, I wrote about what it would look like when I do live my purpose. So this has been such a powerful motivator for me because it's an image that comes back again and again as I face my fears. That gives me motivation. It is a fear that I'm running away from. And I think that is a small percentage of what can positively motivate us if we choose to let it. As I wrote about that in my journal experience, I had this memory come to me of when I was a teenager and we were watching the X-Files. Of course, those are just weird, wonky sci-fi type of old movies. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but totally weird. And you're like, whoa, all these twists and turns and surprises. And I really enjoyed them at the time. I'm kind of one of those sci-fi nerds. But so in this memory, it was as if I was the one in the video of in the movie. So it was as if I was walking into a room and I saw a girl sitting there on a chair, and my eyes as if went up starting at her knees, and she had a bowl of popcorn on her lap, and then went up and of course looking out around the room, I recognized that there's a TV, and the room is only just a little bit bigger than what her space is to get around the chair. So obviously not a lot of freedom. And then as my eyes pan up toward the mouth, I remembered that her mouth was covered over with a piece of skin so that she couldn't talk. And as I saw that, as I was writing in my journal about what it looks like for me not to live my purpose, that was the perfect epitome of everything that I fear, what it feels like in my heart not to be able to speak, not to use my mouth, not to say what's in my heart. That is the worst pain that I think I could ever experience. So that for me is what it's like to not live my purpose or to not accomplish my desire. Awesome. The next step in the hero's journey is being able to find someone that's going to guide us. So as you are moving into your new opportunity, and when you decided to answer that call and finally decided to step forward to take action, to look at the way that you could be the change that you see in the world, as Gandhi says, who was the guide for you that showed up that gave you the epiphany of what you wanted to create in this new opportunity? God has been my guide along my journey. He's always been the underlining song, so to speak. He's been the one that is helping me to hear the music of life, and I write down thoughts that come to my mind, ideas, and he's the one that sings the song and I just write and keep notes. My guide has truly always been that voice inside of me. And learning to trust that has not been easy. I'm really stubborn and I always think that I know better. Okay, that's not a good way to state it. My the part of me that is egotistical always thinks that I already know it and I know better. And it's taken me a long time to be able to submit to God, my Heavenly Father, to know that He has all power and He knows everything that I need and that I can trust Him with all of the things that I desire to create. So learning to live in that trust has been one of the biggest struggles of my life. But He has always been my guide and my highest mentor, with all of the inclusion of everyone else that He has brought into my story to help me learn that next step. After you decided that you wanted to create this new thing, this idea that you had, how did you receive that information? Did that come all at once? Was that line upon line? What was that experience like for you? I think the main epiphany that I had was around the 4 R's that I realized after hypnotherapy school, wanting to be able to make the biggest difference that I could in life. I feel that that's why I was led to hypnotherapy. It really does help people to get deeply into the subconscious very quickly and very effectively. And through that 4 R's process is the reason why that becomes safe. So the epiphany that I had was after I got done with hypnotherapy school, and there was something to me that was missing as I was going through the classes. We learned how to read a script. We learned several different types of sessions, how to create questions to clients that would help them find answers inside of themselves. All of that was hugely valuable. And what I felt was missing again was this emotional safety around how to process. So that's where I was really praying and trying to find, where is this gap? What is this feeling that I have of I'm missing something? And that's when the idea of the 4 R's came back to me in a class that I had learned during the third divorce. Her 4 R's was a little bit different, but along the same pattern. And I've just adapted it for the use of planting those images into that fourth stage, as I mentioned before. What is the strategy or the framework that you developed to get you to the desired result that you wanted to achieve? Having discovered what the 4 R's is and how to apply it into the process of hypnotherapy was kind of emerging. There was an awesome book that I read during my homeschool, and I'm looking on my shelf because I think it is there. I can't remember the name of it, but it was talking about the power of truth and how to learn truth and discovering patterns. One of the things I remember from that book that was so powerful was the combination of 2 different areas. So if you imagine 2 different circles, one circle complete over here, one circle complete over here, and as you overlap them, there's one space in the middle where those ideas overlap. I think that is where the power of the epiphany comes into play, is that I had this knowledge base of what my transformation journey looked like. And then also the tool of hypnotherapy, of course, also learning the tool of meditation as I went through my third divorce experience. I didn't talk about that earlier, but that huge tool, understanding how to transform my mind and my heart and my body and create different emotions in there. And then the fourth piece is the 4 R's. So all of those things coming together created for me that center magic spot of being able to use the 4 R's in guided meditation through hypnotherapy because of my personal journey that I've been on, that I can empathize and understand where clients are. And granted, there's things that I do all the time in hypnotherapy that I haven't done before, but it's because of the pattern that I understand that gives me the way to be able to help someone in a transformation that isn't scripted. One thing I do that I've learned to trust that voice inside of me. About 6 months after hypnotherapy school, I started feeling like this need to go away from scripts and to not just read it, because when I read a script, I didn't feel connected to the client or to what I needed to say. So I started going off script and really just learning to trust my voice and to trust the flow of the ideas that were coming through me. So that has become a very beautiful thing for me. My most precious experience that I get to have is connecting with clients and getting to be, I don't want to use the word medium, but I get to be an instrument for being able to feel that flow for clients and being able to speak to them about what their specific needs are in this 4 R's process. And then after you receive that new information for whatever path that looked like for you in your journey, how did you turn that into a strategy that could help other people? Also, one thing that was the new epiphany for me in learning how to help clients was the piece that I learned in my book about the Z model. And I go over that in our 5-day challenge as well. But it's basically just the idea between oppositions. And I hear a lot of different people talk about what creates transformation, and they'll talk about what you don't want and then what you do want. For me, this image of the Z model gives it so much more depth and power to understand the layers of the gradient, to understand the river. And I know all this isn't going to make sense until after you go through the 5-day challenge, but there's layers that are amazing to be able to understand as you look at the oppositions of life. And when I work with clients, we go through creating a map with them of what they don't want and what they do want. And because of this layering and the understanding that I have of the Z model, and my personal journey and these other pieces of this circle, I can truly feel what they need. And sometimes I'm granted a glimpse into where their pains are, and then I get to ask and explore more about that, looking into the core of what those childhood memories are. The fact is that there are truths inside of you. Your subconscious mind will lead you to where you need to be in a hypnotherapy experience. It is an amazing way to get answers inside of yourself. So, just to summarize the strategy, that is our unique process. First of all, we have a free consultation with the client that in that process, we make a map of what they're experiencing right now, what they don't like in that experience, what the pain is. And then we use that Z model to flip it over to the other side to really dig into and discover what it is that they do want, as much as they have clarity on. Usually during the hypnotherapy session, there is a deeper process that the subconscious is able to explore and understand and kind of weave through some of the things that our conscious mind tries to block from us so that we can't see the deeper layers. That's why hypnotherapy is so powerful, is because it removes that conscious layer of judgment and allows each of us, as we go into that experience, to truly look at what is happening without judgment. A lot of people think that hypnotherapy is about control and that a hypnotherapist has that control because they're afraid that that conscious mind is what is protecting them. But what I have discovered is that this really is a process that allows you to learn to get control of your own mind. I, as a hypnotherapist, have no way to control someone in getting a result that they don't desire, which brings us to the second step. Is in that hypnotherapy consultation, we talk about what the level is of desire on a scale of 1 to 10. If you want a desire of 2, for example, to quit smoking, or your husband or wife wants you to quit smoking, you want it at a 2 and they want it at a 10, guess what? You're not going to get the result, because your level of desire is what really brings the power to the table. It's kind of like two boards leaning on each other. The client comes with their full intention and their desire to be able to tap into the answers that are inside of themselves. And then I show up as an instrument, as that other side. So I am leaning on them, they're leaning on me. And when we both show up 100%, I have seen miracles happen. I have seen that has been able to bring the answers and the questions that have been able to create that transformation inside of that client. What were the results that other people got from following your framework? I have had amazing experiences. Being a hypnotherapist is like looking into the eye of a hurricane. I don't know if you've seen the movie Twister, but I love that moment at the end where they've wrapped themselves with their belts on the pipe, and they get to see inside of what it is like in the Twister. And that moment of awe and wonder. And that's what it's like for me as a hypnotherapist, where I am seeing inside of the transformation of a client who truly desires to be brave and to help their current life experience become transformed into what they want to let go of, remove, and then what they want to bring into their life. This is all about the client. This is all about you being able to create the life that you desire. I get to tap into my own personal experience through the journey, but as one of the sessions that I did today, it's so beautiful to me the way that the subconscious mind truly leads you to the answers that you need. I did a session today with a client that was experiencing imposter syndrome, and they felt like they were pretending. And it was so cool during the experience. Like I said, this is so amazing. They imagined that this part of them that was the imposter was doing a dance, and that they had to keep dancing no matter what. And then as we got deeper and deeper into it, they said that they had to keep dancing because if they didn't keep up the expectations of what everyone else thought that they should do, then the person would stop loving them, or the person that they were pleasing would stop loving them. And then it went deeper into the layer, and we got into the child, the 5-year-old child that had experienced a moment where their mom had disciplined them for something. And then that child felt that the parent being disappointed of them was a withdrawal of that love. So we were able to go into that experience with the client, who became the rescuer or the hero for that 5-year-old child, and truly have that conversation to express whatever hurts she was feeling, to be able to say what hadn't been said, and to to reframe it in a way that, wow, I understand now that I can make mistakes, and making mistakes is a part of life. It's such a privilege to be able to see this real transformation that happens in this intimate conversation with the subconscious. And sometimes it's so hard to explain. If you have had hypnotherapy, or you are talking to someone else who has had hypnotherapy, it's kind of like having a VR on your mind, right? You're seeing a different reality than someone else is experiencing, and you're trying to explain from the inside what that experience is like, and it feels disconnected, and you can't share all the images. Just like in a dream, you're trying to share all the things that are happening, and it's so like, I don't know how to explain it, but that is the privilege of being able to be as a hypnotherapist and watching the transformations of the clients. So we typically, in every session, we go through the 4 R's, and I help them relax and go through that relaxation process with their body, and do a couple things that help them truly to feel like they are owning their power. They have that power to create the life that they desire. And then going through the 4 R's to recognize what they're experiencing and remove what they don't want and replace what they do want, and then reimagine in the future, in a future pacing experience of what they do want and what that looks like. And what are the next steps for you along your journey of creating that today? Well, seeing myself as an entrepreneur and what we talked about earlier, I truly want to be able to create a community of people who are transforming, who are changing themselves. And then in Maslow's triangle, I don't know if you've seen that, but the basic needs are at the bottom. They grow to a place where they're ready to live their purpose. They're ready to serve and reach out and then lift other people. That is my vision and my desire for what my company and my community can accomplish as people who change themselves and who work to lift other people. That we can be, as Gandhi says, the change that we wish to see in the world. I would love to see abuse stop. That would be like, how to measure that, I don't know. But I have a dream of being able to create an event, and I even have a date on it, March of 2025. I'm going to create an event where I'm going to invite women who have had a victory in creating their voice, in creating the life that they desire, and using their voice and speaking their needs. And I'm going to create a stage where they can walk through and they can have a victory walk to share, this is my victory. This is who I am. And even to have a platform where they can share a message, like TEDx style, so that they can share what it is that they feel that they want to change in the world. And of course, I love the quote from Gandhi that says, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And finally, going to that last question of your internal desire, how do you feel like this call and this hero's journey has transformed who you are on the inside to help you let go of the protective elements that tend to create that mask of who we are afraid that other people don't want to see, but truly to become your authentic, amazing, imperfect self? How has your journey helped you become more of who you really are in your core? Wow, in so many ways, I don't even know where to begin. I guess I could just tell you, go watch one of those videos way back in the beginning. In my mind, I had this vision of who I am, of who I can be. And I wasn't able to experience that then, but I was imagining the possibility of what could be. I judged myself all the time. I felt inferior. I felt like I wasn't good enough. There was things in my thoughts and my emotions, but truly I feel like a different person. I feel like I am just beginning as an eagle, as the phoenix, that I have burned down my old self and truly am beginning to take flight into my entrepreneurial experience, as well as into my personal freedom, to be able to express my voice as much as I desire, and to use that voice for good and to help other people to transform. So thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to be with you, and I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you have an amazing day. Bye. And what were the results that you got by following this new framework? So we talked about in the beginning the desires that you had in your heart. There was an external goal, something that you wanted to accomplish in the world, maybe an impact that you wanted to create. And then there was also that internal desire, something that you wanted to become. First, what was the end result for you of accomplishing the thing that you wanted to achieve? What were you able to create?